Miran stood at the edge of the glowing garden. Bright flowers, as big as his hands, opened and closed slowly like they were breathing. The air was warm and soft. Strange lights floated in the sky, like slow-moving stars. He had never seen anything like this before. This was Vera, the home planet of the Thalians, a powerful alien race, led by a queen. Miran was not a soldier. He was a scientist from Earth, sent with a group of humans to help build peace with the Thalians. While the leaders talked about laws and trade inside the palace, Miran liked to walk alone in the royal gardens. He liked silence. He liked nature. And here, he felt calm. On the 5th day of his stay, something strange happened. Miran was near a small tree with silver leaves. He was sitting on a stone bench, drawing a sketch of the garden in his notebook. Then he heard soft footsteps. When he looked up, he saw a small Thalian child standing nearby. The child was tall for his age, with light blue skin and big black eyes. His clothes were made of soft cloth and thin gold bands. He said nothing. He just watched. Miran gave a gentle smile and nodded. He went back to his drawing. The child slowly came closer, curious. He looked at the sketch and tilted his head. "Do you like drawing?" Miran asked, even though he knew the boy might not understand English. The child didn't answer, but sat on the grass beside the bench. He picked up a stick and began drawing shapes in the soft soil. First, a circle, then a triangle, then something that looked like a tree. Miran watched with interest. He pointed to the tree and then pointed to the silver leaf tree nearby. The boy smiled. It was the first time he showed any emotion. "Okay," Miran said softly. "You do understand." The two of them drew for a long time without speaking. It was a strange kind of friendship, but something felt peaceful about it. Miran forgot the noise of politics and the weight of his mission. For the first time on Vera, he felt at home. The next day, Miran returned to the garden. He didn't expect to see the child again. But when he reached the bench, the boy was already there. Waiting. This time, the boy brought colors. Tiny pots filled with dust in red, yellow, green, and blue. He dipped his fingers in them and began painting on a flat stone. Miran sat beside him and watched. The boy's fingers moved fast. Lines, shapes, and shades came alive. After a while, the boy pushed the stone toward Miran. It was a picture. In it, a tall figure stood beside a smaller one. They were standing under a tree. The background had fire flames rising from the garden and smoke filling the sky. The bigger figure looked like Miran. The smaller one was clearly the boy. He had painted a moment that had not yet happened. Miran felt a chill. He looked around. The garden was calm. No smoke, no fire. But the picture was clear. It showed a disaster. Miran touched the stone gently. "Is this the future?" he asked, more to himself than the boy. The boy just blinked and tilted his head. Miran stood and looked around again. Could this be a warning? He took the painted stone with him and walked quickly back to the guest hall. He showed it to the other humans. One of them, a translator named Ramil, laughed. "It's just a child's dream," Ramil said. "They like fantasy art. But this is me," Miran said. "And him, and that's the garden." Another diplomat shook his head. "Maybe it's just his imagination." Miran frowned. Something about the picture felt real. To real. Later that night, he sat alone in his room, looking at the stone painting under the lamp. He had met the boy only twice. He didn't even know his name. But already, he felt a connection. He wondered if this child was someone important, maybe a royal. The palace had many guards and secret rooms. Not everyone could enter the royal garden, but this boy came and went freely. The next morning, Miran went to the garden again. This time, the boy arrived with a guard behind him. The guard stood at a distance. The boy walked up to Miran and held out a small cloth. Inside was another drawing. This one showed a large hall with many people standing in it. The queen was on her throne. And again, Miran was in the middle of the picture. Miran looked at the boy. "Why me?" he whispered. The boy gave a soft smile and touched his own chest, then pointed at Miran's heart. Miran understood. It was not about politics or power. It was about trust. Just then, the guard stepped forward and spoke in a deep voice. The Queen wants to see you. Now, Miran stood up quickly. His heart beat faster. Had she seen the drawings? Was he in trouble? The guard didn't explain. He only led Miran through tall doors and into the palace. As they walked, Miran looked back. The boy stood there alone, watching him. Miran didn't know what would happen next, but he felt it clearly. The meeting with the boy was not an accident. Something bigger was beginning, and he was in the middle of it. The tall doors of the palace opened slowly. 2 guards stepped aside, and Miran entered the great hall. The floor was made of shining stone. Long curtains hung from the high ceiling. At the far end of the hall, on a raised platform, sat the queen. Avira, she wore a long robe that flowed like water. Her crown was simple but bright, and her eyes were sharp. She looked strong, but calm. Miran stopped near the steps and bowed slightly. He didn't know the custom, but he wanted to show respect. "You are the human who spends time in the royal garden," the queen said in clear English. Her voice was smooth but powerful. "Yes, your majesty," Miran replied. "You have met someone important," she said. "Do you know who the boy is?" Miran shook his head. "No, but I feel he is special." The queen gave a small nod. "He is my son. His name is Naru." Miran's eyes widened. He had not expected that. Naru is young. The queen said, "But he has a gift. Sometimes he sees things before they happen. Not always, and not clearly. But when he draws, the truth hides in his lines." Miran took a step forward. "He gave me a picture. It shows a fire in the garden. It hasn't happened yet, but I think it might." The queen raised her hand. A servant walked over and took the painting from Miran's hand. The queen looked at it for a long time. She didn't speak. Then she said softly, "Stay close to the palace for now. If the fire is real, we must be ready." Miran nodded. "I will do whatever I can." The queen studied him. "You are not a fighter, but I think you have courage." Miran didn't know what to say. He simply gave a small bow again. "You may go," she said. As Miran turned to leave, she added, "Spend time with Naru. He trusts you." That evening, Miran sat in the garden again. He thought about Naru's drawing. Why had the boy painted him? Why was he always in the center of the pictures? He was just a visitor, not a leader, not a warrior. Then he heard the soft sound of footsteps. Naru came walking slowly, carrying a flat piece of glass. He sat beside Miran without saying a word. Then he placed the glass on the stone bench. A new picture appeared. This time, it showed the same garden, but everything was burning. The tree they always sat under was falling. The bench was broken. But in the middle, Miran was holding Naru's hand, pulling him away from danger. Miran stared at the image. His heart beat faster. "Is this really going to happen?" he whispered. Naru didn't speak. He just touched the picture with his fingers and nodded. Mira and looked around. The garden was calm and silent, but the drawing didn't lie. He believed it now. That night, Miran didn't sleep. He stayed near the window, watching the sky. Hours passed, and nothing happened. But deep inside, he felt something was coming. Just before dawn, the alarm bell rang. Loud voices echoed through the halls. Guards ran past Miran's room. He jumped up and rushed outside. From his window, he saw smoke rising. The royal garden was on fire. He ran through the halls and down the steps. Flames were already climbing the trees. The silver-leaf tree was burning. Bright sparks flew into the air. It was just like Naru's drawing. Miran shouted for help but didn't wait. He ran into the garden, coughing from the smoke. "Naru," he called. "Where are you?" Through the thick smoke, he saw a small figure under the broken tree. It was Naru. The boy was coughing, trying to stand, but a burning branch had fallen near him. Miran rushed forward, lifted the branch, and pulled the boy into his arms. The flames were rising fast. The bench broke behind them. The fire roared louder. Miran ran toward the exit, holding Naru close. His lungs burned, and his eyes were full of tears from the smoke. But he didn't stop. At last, He burst through the smoke and into the open air. Guards came running and took Naru from his arms. He fell to his knees, gasping for breath. The queen appeared a few minutes later. She knelt beside Naru and held his hand. "He saved me," Naru whispered. The queen looked at Miran. Her eyes were full of surprise and respect. "You believe the drawing," she said. Miran nodded slowly. "Yes, I couldn't ignore it." Later, after the fire was put out, the queen invited Miran to a private room. She spoke in a quiet voice. "This gift runs through our bloodline. It is not strong in every child, but in Naru, it is different. He draws not just what he sees, but what he feels." Miran listened closely. "You are now part of that feeling," the queen said. "Your presence changes him. You help him see more clearly. I believe this is not a small thing." Miran sat still, not sure how to respond. "You are not just a guest anymore," she said. "From now on, you are a guide to my son." Miran looked at her. "I am not trained for that. I'm just a scientist. But you have heart," the queen said. "And you believed him when others did not." Miran felt something stir inside him. He had come to this planet only to study, to watch. But now, he was part of something much larger. He looked at the queen and said, "I will do my best." The queen gave a nod. "Then we begin a new path." Miran left the room with his mind full of thoughts. The drawing had come true, and now he was no longer a visitor. He was a protector, a friend, a guide, and deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. Miran walked slowly through the quiet halls of the palace. The fire had been put out, but the smell of smoke still hung in the air. The royal garden, once full of shining trees and glowing flowers, was now black and broken. Many people were hurt, and some small buildings were lost in the fire. But the queen's son, Naru, was safe. And that mattered most. Miran had never felt so tired. His arms ached. His throat still burned from the smoke. But inside, his heart was steady. He had saved the boy, not because someone told him to, not because it was his job. He had done it because it felt right. Now, everything had changed. Miran was no longer just a guest from Earth. The queen had spoken clearly. He was now Naru's guide, a teacher, a helper, and maybe, one day, a protector. He didn't know what that meant yet, but he was ready to try. The next morning, a servant came to Miran's room. "The queen asks you to join her and the prince in the East Garden," the servant said politely. Miran nodded. He changed into clean clothes and followed the servant through a new part of the palace. The East Garden was smaller than the main one. It had soft grass and small white trees that gave cool shade. Naru was sitting on a low seat, holding a large white cloth in his lap. Next to him was a box filled with colors. The queen stood nearby, watching quietly. Miran bowed slightly as he arrived. The queen smiled softly. "He has something for you," she said. Naru looked up at Miran and lifted the cloth. It was a new painting. This time, it showed a large room filled with many people. In the middle stood a table with strange symbols on it. Two groups faced each other. One side wore long blue robes, the Thalians. The other wore dark suits, the humans. Both sides looked angry. In the center of the picture stood Miran, holding out his hands. As if stopping a fight, Miran stared at the drawing. "What is this?" he asked. Naru touched the cloth gently. Then he pointed to the queen, then to Miran, then back to the drawing. The queen spoke. "He sees another future. One where talks between our people go badly. You stand between them. He believes you are the one who can stop it." Miran looked at the picture again. "But I'm not a leader. I don't have power. You have something more important," the queen said. "You listen. You care. That is rare." Miran felt unsure, but also honored. He had only come to study plants and learn alien languages. He had never planned to be part of peace talks. "Why does he keep drawing me?" Miran asked softly. The queen looked at Naru, then answered, "He sees something in you. A light, maybe, or a path." Naru smiled and nodded. That afternoon, Miran stayed in the garden with Naru. They drew together, using brushes and colored dust. Naru taught Miran simple Thalian words by pointing to things and saying their names. Miran repeated them carefully. They laughed when he said them wrong and smiled when he got them right. It was a new kind of learning. Not in books, not in classrooms, but in silence, in colors, in trust. The next day, a royal meeting was held in the palace. Leaders from Earth and Vera sat together in a round hall. The queen sat high above them all. Miran stood at the side, watching quietly. He was not part of the talks, but the queen wanted him there. As the meeting began, voices rose. The human leaders asked for control over certain energy sources found on Vera. The Thalian advisors said no. They believed Earth only wanted power. The air grew tense. Words became sharp. Then Naru entered the hall. He walked slowly, carrying another pitcher in his hands. Without speaking, he walked to the center and placed the pitcher on the floor. Everyone stopped talking. The drawing showed the same room, but this time, people were shouting. Two leaders stood with weapons raised. The table was broken. In the middle, once again, stood Miran, arms wide, stopping the fight. Whispers filled the room. Some called it nonsense. Others stared in silence. The queen stood and spoke. My son does not lie. His pictures are not games. This image is a warning. The human ambassador looked at Miran. Is this true? Do you believe the boy sees the future? Miran stepped forward. Yes, I do. He saw the fire before it happened. He painted it. I didn't believe him at first, but now I do. The room was quiet. Miran took a deep breath. I don't speak for Earth, but I ask everyone here, listen before you speak. Try to understand before you argue. We came here for peace. Let's not destroy it with pride. For a long moment, no one moved. Then the queen said, let this day be remembered. A visitor from another world chose peace over power. That evening, Miran sat alone in the garden again. The stars above Vera blinked quietly. He thought about everything that had happened. A child's drawing had stopped a disaster. A quiet boy had shown a path that no adult had seen. And Miran, he was no longer just a visitor. He was part of this world now. The cloth drawing still lay beside him. He traced the lines with his finger. The faces, the fire, the hands held out for peace. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But he knew one thing: he would be ready. The sky over Vera was calm again. The fire was gone. The leaders were talking with more care. And Miran had become something more than just a visitor. He was now trusted not just by the queen, but by the young prince, Naru. Every day, Miran spent time with Naru in the garden. They learned from each other. Naru showed him how to paint using Veran dust colors. The colors changed brightness with sunlight. One day, red dust would shine like fire. The next day, it would turn soft like clay. Miran shared Earth ideas too. He showed Naru how to make simple paper birds. They flew small circles before landing. In the grass, Naru laughed every time. It was a warm sound, like music. Few people in the palace had ever heard the prince laugh before. One afternoon, Naru brought a new picture. This one was different. He used a wide cloth and painted many ships in the sky. Some ships were Thalian, with round shapes and long silver wings. Others looked like Earth ships, dark and straight. The two kinds of ships flew side by side. Below them was a peaceful city. In the center of the painting was a tall tower with a new symbol. Miran pointed at the symbol. What is this? Naru smiled and pointed to his heart. Then he pointed to Miran's heart. Miran understood. It means unity. You see humans and Thalians working together. The queen came to the garden that evening. She saw the picture and said, this is not the first time he has drawn this, but this is the first time it was clear. She sat beside them. When he was younger, his drawings were full of storms and fire. He saw wars, pain, fear. But ever since he met you, his paintings have changed. Miran looked down. I don't know why. I didn't do anything special. You believed him? The queen said. Others see a child. You saw a messenger. The queen gave Miran a small silver ring. This is a gift from the royal family. It marks you as a guardian to the prince, not by title, but by bond. Miran felt unsure. I am still learning. Your Majesty, I'm not perfect. The queen smiled gently. We are all learning, even those who wear crowns. As days passed, Naru's drawings became more detailed. He drew large event crowds of different alien species meeting together, planets being connected by glowing bridges, a school with both human and Thalian children. But one drawing made Miran pause. It showed to alien leaders one human, one Thalian standing in anger. Between them stood Miran, once again, with his hands raised. The background was dark, the sky cloudy. It was not a happy picture. What does this mean? Miran asked. Naru slowly touched the drawing, then pointed at the sky. Miran understood. A storm is coming. That same night, a message arrived from Earth. A new ambassador named Björn was coming to Vera. He was strict, powerful, and known for his hard way of speaking. He believed Earth should lead, not follow. Miran didn't like the sound of that. When Ambassador Björn arrived, he looked around the palace with cold eyes. He greeted the queen politely, but spoke in short sentences. During the first meeting, he didn't look at Naru or Miran at all. I'm here to speak for Earth, he said. Not to play with colors. The queen gave a calm reply. You are welcome here, but do not mistake kindness for weakness. Miran could feel the tension. It was like a rope pulled too tight. After the meeting, Björn found Miran in the hallway. You've been here too long, Björn said. You've forgotten who you are. You're one of us, not one of them. I haven't forgotten anything. Miran replied, I just see the truth. We need peace, not pride. Björn narrowed his eyes. Careful. Miran, you speak like a dreamer. Earth doesn't need dreams. It needs power. Miran walked away without answering. That evening, Naru brought another painting. It was half finished. It showed a room with broken chairs, spilled ink, and torn flags. In the center was Björn, raising his hand in anger. On the other side stood the queen, her face full of calm strength. Between them again stood Miran. I don't want this future, Miran said. Naru nodded slowly. Miran sat with him and picked up a brush. Then let's try to change it. Together, they began painting a second version. This one showed the same people, the same room. But this time, everyone was sitting, listening. No one was shouting. The flags were whole, the room peaceful. Miran looked at Naru. We can shape the future, right? Naru smiled and dipped his finger into the blue dust. Then, slowly, he drew a circle around the peaceful picture. The next morning, the queen invited both ambassadors and leaders to a new meeting. The hall was simple, with a round table in the middle. No guards, no weapons. Miran stood to the side. Naru placed the two paintings on the table, one of war, one of peace. The queen spoke softly. To futures. Which one will we choose? Björn looked at the paintings and then at Miran. For a moment, his face was unreadable. Then he sat down and said, Let us talk. And so, the meeting began. The meeting began with quiet voices. For the first time, both sides, Earth and Vera, were sitting at the same table without guards or heavy rules. The queen sat with her head held high. Ambassador Björn sat across from her, calm but watchful. The round table had Naru's two paintings placed in the middle. One showed peace. One showed conflict. Miran stood near the wall, listening. He knew this was a very important day. He had seen what Naru painted. The boy didn't speak much, but his hands always told the truth. If they wanted peace, they had to listen not just with ears, but with hearts. Naru sat in the corner, legs crossed, eyes wide. He watched the leaders carefully, as if waiting for something. The talk started with small matters, trade, rules of travel, sharing of knowledge. Both sides agreed on simple things. The queen smiled softly. Even Björn looked more relaxed. But then the talks moved to energy. A rare energy stone was found deep under Veran land. Earth wanted access to it. The queen said her people must protect it. Björn's voice became sharp. We offer help with your defenses. We expected partnership. The queen replied firmly. We value peace, not control. The stone lies in our soil. It belongs to us. The room became cold. Miran stepped forward. Maybe there is a way to share. We can study the stone together. find safe ways to use it, but Bjorn didn't answer him. Then something strange happened. Naru stood up and walked slowly toward the table. He didn't say a word. He placed a new painting on the table. It was smaller than the others, but it was clear. The picture showed the queen in her throne room. Behind her stood a tall Thalian wearing the royal symbol. His face was half hidden in shadow. In one hand, he held a small bottle. A black mark ran across the bottle. Poison? The queen looked at the painting. Her eyes narrowed. Who's this? Naru pointed to the shadowed figure. Then he pointed toward the back of the room. Everyone turned. There stood Advisor Velen, one of the queen's oldest council members. He was tall, with soft eyes and silver robes. He stepped forward slowly, confused. This is madness, Velen said. He is only a child. But the queen stood up. Naru's pictures have come true before. If he paints danger, I will not ignore it. Guards surrounded Velen. He held up his hands, calm. I have served you for 20 years, he said. I have given my life to this palace. Then you will not fear a search, the queen said. One guard stepped forward and opened Velen's long robe. Inside was a small metal case. The guard opened it. Inside was a bottle. The queen's face changed. That bottle matches Naru's painting. Velen tried to run, but the guards moved fast. They held him down and took him away. The room was silent. Bjorn looked shocked. The other Earth leaders stared at Naru. How did he know? Bjorn asked. Mira and replied. He sees things before they happen. Not always clear, but true. The queen sat back down. Her voice was steady. Someone close to me tried to harm me, and a human saved my son. Today, my son has saved me. You ask how we can trust each other. I say look at this room. We are already connected. Bjorn lowered his eyes. The meeting ended a short while later. No one had energy to continue. The danger had passed, but the weight of it still filled the air. That evening, Miran walked with Naru in the garden. The stars above were quiet. The garden had begun to grow again after the fire. New plants were rising from the black soil. Flowers, with gold edges open under moonlight. Miran turned to Naru. You saw something bad. You told the truth. You saved your mother. Naru didn't speak, but he held Miran's hand tightly. They sat near the silver leaf tree. Miran asked, Do you always see danger? Or do you sometimes see joy too? Naru reached into his bag and pulled out a new cloth dyed. It was bright. This picture showed a grand hall. Different beings from many planets stood side by side. Thalians, humans, and even other alien species. In the center, a tall symbol stood half Thalian, half Earth design. And at the front of the crowd stood Naru and Miran. Side by side, Miran smiled. You see a future where everyone is together. Naru nodded. Mira and leaned back against the tree. Then we must keep walking that path, no matter how hard it becomes. The next morning, the queen called Miran alone to the royal chamber. She looked calm, but her eyes held deep thought. You have done more than we expected, she said. Not just saving my son. You helped build something between us. I just did what felt right. Miran said, That is the rarest kind of wisdom, she replied. She walked to a small case and opened it. Inside was a white robe with a blue mark on the chest. This is a robe of unity, she said. It has never been worn. It was made in hope. Today, I give it to you. Miran stepped back. I am not royal. I don't know all your ways. You don't need to, she said. This is not about power. It is about purpose. You are now a bridge between two worlds. Miran took the robe in his hands. The cloth felt light, but strong. He looked up. Thank you. I will wear it with care. As he left the room, he saw Naru waiting outside. The boy looked at the robe and smiled wide. Do you like it? Miran asked. Naru nodded, then pulled out one more drawing. It showed Miran standing in front of a bright city, wearing the same robe. Behind him stood the queen. Beside him stood Naru. In front of them, hundreds of people, humans, Thalians, and more stood cheering. The path was still long, but the future was being shaped, one drawing at a time. Sunlight filled the palace windows as Miran stood before a wide mirror. He was wearing the new robe the queen had given him. It was white with a blue symbol in the center, shaped like a star and a leaf joined together. This was the mark of unity, something that had never been worn before by a human or a Thalian. Miran touched the fabric gently. He still couldn't believe how much had changed. He came to Vera as a visitor, as a simple scientist. Now, he was the trusted guide of the queen's son and a symbol of peace between two worlds. But deep in his heart, a question remained: should he stay here forever? Later that morning, Miran walked into the garden where Naru was waiting. The boy smiled when he saw the robe. He clapped his hands softly, then showed Miran a new painting. This time, the drawing showed two paths. On one side, Miran was leaving on a spaceship. He looked sad. Naru stood far away, holding a paintbrush, alone. On the other side, Miran stood beside Naru in a bright room, teaching young Thalian and human children together. There were books, maps, and colors all around. Miran sat beside Naru and sighed. "You see both futures," he said. Naru nodded. He didn't try to convince Miran. He only waited. That was how Naru always showed care, by being present, not by speaking. Later that day, a message arrived from Earth. The leaders wanted Miran to return. They wanted him to report what he had seen, explain the queen's words, and help plan the next steps. They said his work on Vera was complete. Miran held the message for a long time before replying. He didn't answer right away. That evening, he was invited to the royal chamber again. The queen sat beside a low table, her hands resting calmly on her knees. "I have heard Earth has called you back," she said. Miran nodded. "Yes. They believe my job here is done. Is that how you feel?" Miran looked at the glowing lamps around the room. "A part of me misses home, my people, my world. But another part feels something here, like I am helping build something real." The queen smiled gently. "You are free to choose. You are not a prisoner. But know this: your presence has helped open doors that were long closed. You are not here by chance." Miran sat down across from her. Naru's gift is rare, but without someone to help him, he could be lost in his visions. "I can't forget that." The queen's eyes softened. "He trusts you. That is not something I can give him. He chose it on his own." There was silence for a moment. Then the queen spoke again. "If you choose to stay, I will give you a place in the learning circle. You will teach our children about Earth, and our people will learn from you." Miran's heart beat faster. "And if I return to Earth, you will still be respected," she said. "But this bond may fade. Naru's path may grow darker without your light beside him." Miran stood up and gave a deep bow. "I will give you my answer tomorrow." That night, he went to the roof of the guest tower. The stars of Vera were bright and beautiful. He looked up at the sky and thought about Earth. He imagined walking through the old parks, visiting his small home, speaking to people who looked like him. It felt warm but also far away. Then he looked down and saw a soft light in the garden. Naru was sitting alone, painting under the silver-leaf tree, the same tree they had shared from the beginning. Miran went down the steps quietly. He didn't say anything. He just sat beside the boy. Naru showed him the painting. It was a simple picture, just two figures, one big, one small, walking side by side through a field of stars. Miran looked at Naru. "You already know my answer, don't you?" Naru smiled and nodded once. The next morning, Miran stood before the queen again. He wore the robe of unity with pride. "I wish to stay," he said clearly. "If I return to Earth, I will only speak of fear and risk. But if I stay, I can help shape peace with my own hands." The queen nodded. Then today, we begin a new story. In the weeks that followed, many changes came. A new school was built beside the East Garden. Thalian and human children came together to learn about language, science, and peace. Miran was given a role as one of the main teachers. He taught about Earth, its oceans, its animals, and its people. He also taught about trust and truth. Naru sat in every class. He painted what he learned. His pictures filled the school walls with bright colors and strong messages. One day, Naru gave Miran a painting. It showed a circle of many species, not just humans and Thalians. They stood around a large table, each one sharing light from their own world. In the center stood a tall tower with the unity symbol shining above it. This is not just about Earth and Vera, Miran said softly. This is bigger. Naru nodded from that day. The queen began inviting leaders from other nearby planets to visit. The idea of peace was spreading, and it all began with a child's drawing and a human who chose to listen. Miran looked around. At the growing garden, the school, and the children running between trees, he had made his choice, and he had no regrets. Time moved forward like calm water flowing through the Garden of Peace. Months passed on the planet Vera, and everything around Miran began to grow, not just the trees and buildings, but the hearts of the people. Miran had now become a familiar face in the palace, and among the people, he walked without guards, shared meals with Thalian workers, and often played learning games with children from both worlds. His room, once silent and lonely, was now filled with drawings, small gifts from students, and books written in both human and Thalian words. One day, the queen stood on the high tower and made an announcement. A new time has begun. No longer shall we live in silence from other stars. Let this planet be a home where peace is taught, not war. Let it begin with our children. That message was sent to nearby star systems, and slowly, others started to come. Some came in peace, curious about what was happening. Others came with caution, unsure if the promise of peace was true. Miran met every guest with respect. He told them about how it all started with a drawing made by a quiet child who saw something others could not, and how that child had helped change a world. One bright morning, Naru ran to Miran with great excitement. Come see, he said with a wide smile. He took Miran to the open hall of the new school. Inside, a large wall was covered with a painting, made by many children. It was full of stars, suns, plants, and creatures from many worlds. In the center of the wall, there was a tall figure with a calm face. It was Miran, holding a book and standing beside Naru, who held a paintbrush. Around them were children from all races laughing and learning. Miran smiled warmly. It's beautiful. Naru looked up at him. It is not just a painting. It is a promise. More and more young ones came from other planets to learn at the school. Some were shy, some were bold, but all were curious. The Garden of Peace was now full of many voices and colors. The air was no longer silent. It was filled with laughter, music, and stories. Miran began teaching about Earth's values: cooperation, honesty, and respect. He shared stories of how humans had made mistakes, but also how they had learned to build better futures. The Thalian teachers shared their deep wisdom, teaching about patience, vision, and nature's balance. Naru was no longer just a student. He had become a guide to younger children. He helped them paint, dream, and imagine. His visions were still powerful, but now he knew how to use them for good. One evening, as the sun on Vera turned the sky golden, Naru showed Miran his most important drawing yet. This picture was different. It showed a large round hall filled with beings from many stars. There were humans, Thalians, and others. In the middle of the room, there was a great circle table. Around it, leaders sat with open hands. Above them, a light shaped like the unity symbol shone brightly. What is this place? Miran asked. Naru looked serious. This is the Circle of Stars, a meeting place for peace. It does not exist yet, but it can. Miran sat beside him in silence. The dream was big, very big. But was it possible? A few weeks later, the queen called Miran and Naru to a private meeting. She had also seen the drawing. She said, "This is the next step, but it cannot be built by us alone." So messages were sent across space. Invitations were written in many languages. Ships were guided to land in peace. One by one, leaders from different worlds arrived. Miran stood with the queen and Naru in the center of the new hall. It was round, just like in the picture. The walls were painted with scenes of peace and learning. There were no weapons inside, only voices and dreams. When all the guests were seated, Miran stepped forward. "We are not perfect," he said. "Humans have made many mistakes, so have others. But this place is not for perfect people. It is for those who believe in change. He looked at the queen. She opened her world to me. Then he looked at Naru. He showed me a future I could not see. On my own, Viran turned to the leaders. We are here because of one drawing, a child's picture. If such a small act can create this, imagine what we can build together. There was silence. Then slowly, one leader stood and placed a crystal on the table. Another placed a flower. Another placed a piece of carved stone. They were gifts not of power, but of trust. The circle of stars was born. From that day, Vera was known as the planet of peace. Ships from across galaxies came not to fight, but to learn. And in the center of it all was the boy who once drew with dust and sticks, and the man who believed in him. Years passed, but the story was told again and again. Children would ask, "Is it true? Did one drawing really change the stars?" And teachers would smile and say, "Yes." It began with a quiet boy, a human visitor, and the courage to believe in something new. And under the silver leaf tree, the first picture still remained. A small drawing of a man and a boy, standing together under the stars, side by side. Forever.